Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new video in ages on the Podcast Pals channel. I know this channel's been dead for a couple of months now, but we're making progress. We still have some stuff we need to work on. But anyway, I'm Yoshi Player. I'm the new host of the channel, and I'm joined by another podcast member, Cartoon OG.
Hi there, I am the Cartoon OG. I'm sure you probably remember me from a couple of instances where I was in the Talking Loud podcast, but that's done now.
We've moved on from that show. I'd really hate to say the name, but we've moved on from that. We're focusing on different podcasts now, but this is just sort of a one-off one. We have some other podcast shows coming out, like Animates, which I'm getting to that, but Nick is just he's taking forever, and I think you have a podcast show coming out as well, I believe.
Yeah, me and Muppet Spot have already recorded a few podcast connection discussions, but he still has to edit them and get them ready.
If, in case you don't know, that's a podcast dedicated to Jim Henson stuff, mainly the Muppets, hence the name.
So far we only have four of them recorded. Or was it five? I can't remember. A few Christmas ones, as well as one on the Muppet movie.
Ah,
Funny
okay.
enough, we actually had a plan to do like a special type where you, me, and Muppet all did a discussion where each of us ranked all the theatrical Muppet movies from least best to best, basically how we would rank each of them.
Right. Yeah,
I said
I was
least.
gonna
I
be a
said
part of
le-
that.
I said least best to best because I personally don't think any of the theatrical Muppet movies are bad, to be honest.
Well, I'm a different story, but that's a topic for another day. So, a little more than a year ago, we released a video talking about Disney Plus. But that was on my main channel because I didn't host Podcast Pals at the time. That was Cynic, but he doesn't run it anymore. Anyway, so it's been over a year. We were thinking, hey, maybe we should do another video where we sort of talk about what's changed in the year that Disney Plus has been out. So this video is mainly going to be focusing on changes, differences, additions, stuff we want to see, or other stuff that has happened. So if you've seen the old Disney Plus video, you're not missing out on much. We're basically going to be going into the same ground, but yeah, it's just mainly a bunch of new stuff that's come since Disney Plus has launched.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was honestly surprised when you told me that you were going to put this on Podcast Pals instead of your own channel, but you said because it's a sort of a podcast discussion, it would fit better over there.
Yeah, it would. Anyway, so Disney Plus, it's been out for over a year. I suppose to start this off the best way, I should ask Cartoon OG. In the year that it's been out and all the stuff that's happened, would you still recommend Disney Plus to people?
Oh, yes, I would, highly.
Yeah, I would, because of all the new stuff that's been coming out. Uh, Hard to say if Disney Plus is better than Netflix right now, but it depends on where you live, I suppose.
Hmm. But
Anyway,
yeah,
so
I
yeah,
mean, I'm,
sorry.
I mean, I love the service as soon as I got it, and the more content that's come on there, and the more that it's changed and added new things as well, whether it's original or legacy content, it's only gotten better in my opinion.
Yeah, especially since Disney Plus doesn't remove titles. Actually, I think they removed a couple of titles in your region, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm. Funny enough, the only thing that's ever really gotten removed has been stuff by Fox. But I know the main problem with that is because Fox, before they were bought out by Disney, they had an agreement, I think, with HBO to have their movies air on their channel and stream on their services, and the deal doesn't end until 2022.
Which is next year. So hopefully by then more Fox movies will be showing up on Disney Plus because Fox is a very important company in terms of making movies and
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty annoying, especially since some movies were put on there at launch, but then taken off, then put back, then taken off again.
yeah, I've seen like those Disney Plus videos with new movies coming out and I'm like, "Wait, didn't we already have those movies on Disney Plus?" I'm like, "Oh, that's right, because America." Yeah, I suppose that is a thing that happens with Disney Plus from time to time. They'll just remove some content either because
Mhm.
of streaming rights or yeah, like you said with Fox and all that.
Yeah, and I think I told you this one thing that I remember got you steamed. Where I remember when the first Ice Age was put on there, it was only on there temporarily. But as soon as they took it off, they put out the fifth one on there. I forgot the subtitle for that one.
Oh, I am so sorry. That sucks. That hurts really
Yeah,
bad.
Yeah, and
Ugh.
yeah, the fifth one was Collision Course, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and I
Unfortunately.
still remember as soon as the first movie was taken off, they put that one on there.
Is it still on there, by the way?
Yes, it's still on
Oh
there.
my lord, what the fuck, Disney?
Like I said, until the Fox thing clears up, but so far we've only gotten like about maybe four of them, and they were put on gradually because I know they put Ferdinand and Epic on there. I actually saw Epic for the first time a while ago, and the Peanuts movie is on there.
Yeah, lots of legacy content have come out, and I think it's safe to say that most of them have been pretty good. I think the two standouts, though, without a doubt, are the additions of Dinosaurs and The Muppet Show, which we have been
Yep.
requesting for a long time, and they finally come out, all of the
Mm.
seasons, and it's great because we get to have more Jim Henson content on Disney Plus. The only thing we're missing now is Bear in the Big Blue House.
But as far as I can tell, there hasn't been any word on whether that'll get put on there. And I've actually never seen that show before. I've told you that. But if they do put it on there, I'll definitely check it out.
But yeah, like it's just so amazing to have those two shows on Disney Plus because like they're just great shows. I think they should get a bit more attention, especially. I mean, I complained at launch that the Muppet Show wasn't on there because that's an essential part of the Muppets history, and it wasn't on there. But now it is. So if you're wanting to get into it, I think that's the best place to start with the Muppet Show.
Most definitely. And I do remember, even though the Muppets is one of the things owned by Disney, I remember one of the things that was kind of a downer when I first got the service was there was hardly any Muppet content on there, besides most of the movies and only one show.
Yeah, actually, I think two shows. I think there was the 2015 show, and then there was Muppet Babies, but it was the new one, not the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not that much, but yeah, lots of
But,
like
but
Disney Plus content has come out. Like you said, a bunch of Fox movies, more Jim Henson content, and of course, like more content from other publishers like Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars. We'll get into those in just a little bit. But
mhm.
along with new additions, Disney Plus has also added a bunch of movies that were not supposed to be on there earlier than we thought.
It's kind of interesting because I know some movies that were on there exclusively because they were meant to be in theaters don't have the Disney Plus original title on them, but only a couple of them do.
Yeah, like so it started off with Frozen 2, which got added onto Disney Plus the same month it got released on DVD, and then Onward came out on Disney Plus a month after it was released in theaters, and it wasn't a premiere access movie. And
Hmm.
then Soul, which was supposed to be in theaters, never got released in theaters and was put on Disney Plus, but they labeled it as a Disney Plus original movie, which I don't understand because it wasn't meant to be an original at first, but oh well, at least we got to watch it for
Yeah.
free. And also, yeah, a couple movies that have been released on Premiere Access. The only one I'm going to talk about is Raya and the Last Dragon because that's the only one that I care about.
Yeah, I still haven't bought it on Premiere Access, but I got to get around to it because I really want to watch it.
Anyway, along with those additions, of course, many of those titles that were supposed to be on Disney Plus at launch have gotten added over time. That was because of streaming rights. So now we're at a point where I think pretty much most of the MCU movies are on Disney Plus. I think all the Star Wars movies are on there, all the Pixar
Yep.
movies are on there, and most of the Disney movies. I think they're missing like one or two movies. I'm not
Mhm.
too sure about that.
As far as I can tell, I think most of them are on there because I know most of them have been added over time. And
Yeah, that was because
um,
of streaming rights on other streaming services.
mhm. Yep, and yeah, and of course, but of course, as much as we've been saying how much Disney Plus has been great, we do know that at launch there were some problems, but some problems have been fixed, but there are still problems here and there.
Yeah, one of the first issues we had at launch was that some shows had their episodes orders randomized. So stuff like DuckTales 2017 or a good chunk of the Disney afternoon shows were out of order or were just placed into one season for some reason. And it was really annoying, especially for people that wanted to get into those shows for the first time, because, oh, I can't watch them in order because it's not properly listed on there. It's like, what the hell?
Yep, it was really odd. And one of the things that really weirded me out with the Disney Afternoon is that hardly any of them had their multi-part pilot as the first episode.
Yeah, I don't. I don't get that because those are the first episodes and they're not listed as the first episodes. Like they're mini movies that are supposed to get you into the shows and they're not like listed properly for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't really get
it was
that.
really weird. The only two I think that had their episode orders correct were just Gummy Bears and Gargoyles.
Wait, were those out of order at launch or were they always
No,
in the
as
right
far as I
order?
can tell, as far as I can tell, they were always in the right order.
Ah, well, yeah, that's a good thing. But the good news is some shows have had their episodes orders fixed. Of course, DuckTales, both DuckTales shows had their episode orders fixed. So now, if you want to get into them, you can easily now. Like, and also Tailspin got its episode orders fixed. So now the multi-part episodes are the first ones you see, which
Hmm.
is how they should have always done it in the first place. But unfortunately, not every show has had their orders fixed. Not
Mhm.
just some Disney afternoon shows, but a good chunk of other Disney cartoons as well. Like
Hmm.
Darkwing Duck still has the episodes out of order for the most part. Some are still in order, but
Mhm. Oh, and before I forget about this, there is one other problem with some Disney afternoon shows. Some of them have episodes missing. Like, for example, Darkwing Duck doesn't have the episode Hot Spells, and I think I read that Tailspin also doesn't have the finale, but I think the reason for that was because these were actually episodes that ended up getting banned in reruns, and I'm assuming that's why they weren't included on Disney Plus.
oh well, I guess that explains it then. Even though,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to get into a discussion about that, but like I said, they were episodes that were banned like in reruns and stuff, so they never appeared that much whenever I watched them on Toon Disney. But I guess that's the problem. But luckily, like you said, even though some is still kind of messed up, there's a lot of things that are in the correct order. And besides episode order, another issue that they also fixed that everyone complained about was the aspect ratio for classic Simpsons episodes.
ah yes, I could not hear the end of that. It was an issue I had at launch too. Everybody was saying it's in the wrong aspect ratio. Why is it widescreen? It should be in 4:3. And it was an issue for a couple of months, but since May of last year, they have fixed it. They added the original 4:3 episodes, and so it's made
Mhm.
watching a lot of older Simpsons episodes a lot easier to sit through because now I can see visual gags and see everything that was meant to be in place that they cut out for some weird reason.
Yeah,
I don't get why
yeah.
they crop shows. Like, I don't get that.
Yeah, the whole cropping thing is weird, and the funny thing is that this isn't the first time it happened. When the Simpsons World app first launched, it had that problem as well.
It's good that they have the original ratios on there, but for some odd reason, when you want to watch it for the first time, it's set to widescreen by default. And if you want to change it, you have to go to the Details app, and there's a slider there. So if you click on it, and it's grayed out, then it will be in 4:3. If it's blue, then it's widescreen. So because I know there's some people that do prefer to watch the show in widescreen. I don't know why, but it's the option is at least there, so they didn't completely cut out the widescreen episodes. It's just more of a preference thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and the funny thing is that I didn't even know that until you told me.
I told you back in May, didn't I?
No, you didn't tell me that you had to set it up manually yourself.
Oh, right, I did leave that part out. Yeah, you do have to set it manually, but oh well, once you do, it's smooth sailing from there.
But of course, even though some issues were fixed, but we also have another problem with issues that also came over time. For example, remember when the service first launched and how for every TV show everything was on one page with all the seasons like in a straight line going down?
Yeah.
Now the seasons are put in tabs.
Yeah, it's especially noticeable on the website. When you're using it on like a TV or a phone, it's not too bad because, it's standard, but on the website it doesn't make a lot of sense. At least it does look a bit more professional, and I have gotten used to it over time. At least it does tell you how many episodes are in a season, so you're not trying to marathon it, wondering how many episodes are left. So at least there's that. But still, I kind of prefer the one, like, all the seasons on one tab because it's just easier and more convenient. Like, I just have to scroll through and find the episode, and that's it.
Mhm. But yeah, I actually remember I've gotten used to it as well. But I remember when it first happened, I just remember being kind of upset because I just thought to myself, why would they do this? I mean, this is one of the things that actually made the service more convenient than other streaming services to have all the seasons just there for you to like scroll through rather than have to mouse over to a tab to each season.
Yeah, that is a bit upsetting, but it's
Yeah.
not that bad. It's not like a major issue that I have with Disney Plus. And on the bright side, they did add back the continue watching feature, which wasn't there at launch, so it makes
Hmm.
it just a little bit easier, I suppose. Also, before we move on with originals, there's actually one big addition that Disney Plus has had recently. Not the Muppet Show. That's a massive addition, I know, but something even bigger came. But it's only in international countries. I'm sure most of you know about Hulu, like a service that has many shows and movies on there. Um,
Hmm.
Disney, I think they own a handful of stuff on there. It mainly
Hmm.
has like shows and movies that are too adult for Disney Plus, I think.
Yeah.
Well, in international countries, we don't have Hulu, so to make up for it, Disney has actually added another brand to Disney Plus known as Star. And that's basically the adults only section. It has a bunch of adult movies and shows like Deadpool or Borat or shows that are more geared to an older audience, like Futurama, for instance. Well, now all of those are on Disney Plus on the Star brand, and they also changed the parental controls, so now your profiles can have pins, or it's a little bit more difficult for your kids to try and access your account, because, oh, these shows are too adult for them, so they can't access it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I remember when Disney Plus first launched, I never would have thought that it would be one of the streaming services that would have you filter the content for kids' profiles. But I know they have done that. But in places where they have Star, now you really have to filter the content and make kids' profiles for them.
But still, I really love
Yeah.
Star. It's helped add Disney Plus to that level where now it can compete alongside Netflix properly because it has adult content on there. And like it's not just a family-friendly streaming service. I do kind of prefer that mentality because Disney is always a family brand, but even then it still had some stuff on there that kids shouldn't be able to watch at a young age.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I said before, before all that stuff happened, I never would have thought that Disney Plus would have had to be the same way like Netflix or other services where you have to filter the content for kids. But even though most of the stuff on Disney Plus at launch and afterwards is family friendly, not all of it is completely family friendly. Like, of course, they had The Simpsons on there, and of course, I'm pretty sure you'd agree that shows like The Mandalorian is probably better. It's probably better to not be seen by younger kids.
Yeah, yeah. Disney Plus, even at launch, never had all family-friendly content.
Mhm.
But still, like Star, I really love it. It's helped like add Disney Plus. It's made it even better than it was before, which was already at a very high standard. So, good job, Disney. I'm glad to have some Hulu stuff that's not on Hulu. Oh well. Alright, but we've gotten through the technical stuff, the legacy stuff. Now we're going to go into the original content because, yes, some original shows and movies have been added to Disney Plus, and a main appeal of streaming services is being able to watch shows that you can't find anywhere else because they're exclusive to that platform.
Yep, and of course, I remember at launch there were quite a few originals that were interesting. I actually have some stuff to say about the original movies, but we can get to that when we get to the movies. First, we're going to talk about shorts and specials, right?
Yeah, we're going to get to shorts because they're short, simple to talk about. The first shorts that came out, it was very much after Disney Plus launched. It was called Short Circuit. It's from Disney Animation. They're kind of like the Pixar Spark shorts, except they're a lot shorter and they're more, should I say, experimental? I don't want to say the
Hmm.
Spark shorts aren't experimental, but like there's lots of different styles they use for those ones.
Hmm. Yeah, I was honestly kind of surprised that a few of the Spark shorts were computer animated because I thought that most of them would have been 2D or had something like that. But no, some of them are computer animated.
Yeah, but with the short circuit ones, they all have different styles. Some are 2D animated, some are 3D animated. They even go for different styles. Some remind me of stuff like Spider-Verse or comic book styles, and I love it. Like I
Hmm.
love the different styles they use for these shorts to sort of give them their own personality and
Yeah,
vibes.
yeah. I remember one that I really liked was this one that I think it was mostly in a CGI style, but it had this whole thing where it was showing like street art and it had like this 2D effect all throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it gave me a lot of Spider-Verse vibes when I was watching that one.
Yeah. And there was also one that was kind of like a comic book where they had things like speech bubbles and thought balloons and all that.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, lots of different shorts for YouTube. I think at launch though, I think one of the shorts was missing though.
Hmm.
But I think they added it over time. But yeah, these shorts are really good. I really like their animation techniques that they go for. The only thing I don't like about them though is the length, because I think some of them are a bit too short.
Yeah, because compared to the Spark shorts, where most of them are maybe like 5, 6, or 7 minutes long, these ones are only like 2, 3 minutes long at the most, and some of the runtime is taken up at the beginning by the person who directed the short, introducing it to you.
Yeah, I mean, for most of them, the length's not too bad because the story is very simple. But there were a handful of ones where I was like getting into it, and I'm like, oh, we're already done. Like, I wanted to see
Mhm,
more from that.
mhm. Especially with a lot of the really neat ideas they came up with for most of them.
Yeah, like that's disappointing. Like you're into a short and you want to see what comes out of it, but it's already over.
Mhm.
It is
Yeah.
annoying, but other than that, though, I think Short Circuit's really good. I think I'd probably put it on the same level as the Spark Shorts. I don't know which one's better, but I do still think both have their own merits to them.
Because they're basically both Disney and Pixar's equivalent of just these like little experimental animations that they can do.
Yeah, and I always loved it. Like I said in my review on the Willoughbys a couple days ago, I really like to see experimental animation. Like we don't just have to stick to CGI or 2D. You can be a bit more experimental, and I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, we don't I mean, experimentation doesn't always work, but it's still important to do it.
Yeah, so we can establish some new styles. There's also a handful of other shorts done by Pixar, but they're not Spark shorts. It's a little short series called Pixar Popcorn.
And believe it or not, these shorts are even shorter. Some of them are only about 2 minutes.
Yeah, they're even shorter than the short circuit ones, but unlike the short circuit ones, I think these shorts have an appropriate length to them. Most of them are about 1 or 2 minutes, but I think the runtime fits the stories they tell just fine.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot of really interesting ones too. And I was really glad that they didn't decide to just go for like the main franchises or the bigger ones like Toy Story and Cars. They also did ones for Coco, they did one for Soul.
Yeah, yeah. Pixar Popcorn's basically a bunch of tiny short films based on Pixar movies. Like you said, Toy Story and Cars, and also some individual Pixar movies like Soul and Coco, and it's cool to see like little tiny continuations of those movies.
Mhm. Yeah, and of course there was also one for Finding Nemo. There were two for The Incredibles.
Yeah, there was ones too. Of course, there was.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's only like what 10 shorts, but they're really cute. Like I really like pretty much all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I liked all of them. And another thing I like about them is that all of them are basically dialogue free. The only ones that aren't dialogue free are the Toy Story or two Toy Story ones that center on Ducky and Bunny.
Yeah, most of them don't have dialogue. It's all told through the expressions, and I'm such a sucker for stories that tell you a story without much dialogue. 'Cause, like it
Yeah,
shows that
for the
kids can really
yeah,
think about what the characters are
and-
thinking and how it's being
yeah.
presented.
And because of the show don't tell style, I'm really surprised they didn't do a short for Wally because that would really work well for that.
Yeah, considering that movie was mostly dialogue free, it was mainly on the ship where there was dialogue. But yeah, I'm
Mhm.
surprised they didn't do one for that. Or it would have been nice if they did like a couple shorts for other Pixar movies that haven't had much attention recently, like Brave or Inside Out or A Bug's Life or something like that.
I would love to see one for Inside Out.
Yes, I would love one for Inside Out. Like, why didn't we get one for Inside Out? That would have that
Hmm.
would have been
Like I
amazing.
said, Inside Out would have been good, and like I said, I also would have liked one for Wally just because of how many of them have show don't tell. Wally would have been perfect, especially since the main character doesn't really speak. So
Oh well, but the popcorn shorts they're cute. I also like the little Pixar logo variations they do at the beginning. That's always fun.
yeah. Oh, and before we stop talking about Pixar popcorn, I should also tell everyone that you can watch all the shorts separately, or you can also watch them all together because at the very end there's a watch all option where you can watch all of them edited together into one video file.
That's
I'd
actually how
recommend
I
doing
watched them.
recommend doing that because watching them separately is kind of annoying because a couple of them don't actually continue on. They actually stop, take you back to the main page, and I ended up with the dreaded blue line on one of the thumbnails, and I couldn't fix it.
Yeah, it's always it's nice to have that or watch all option. I think they should do that for more other shows, just in case people are lazy.
hmm Yeah, so so I'm really kicking myself for not doing the watch all thing and watching all the shorts separately at first.
Oh, well, at least the option's there. But go, if you like Pixar, and I pity you if you don't, then go check out the Popcorn shorts. I think they're really cute. Alright, so now we're done with the shorts. Let's talk about a couple of the movies. Now, there's not as much movies on the Disney Plus originals compared to the shows, but I think there are a handful that we want to talk about. Of course, not
Hmm.
all of them, but there's a
Hmm.
couple that do stand out in their own ways. Of course,
In
again,
fact,
not all of them will be talked about.
yeah. In fact, before we get on this, I think you won't disagree with me on this, but even though Disney Plus has had a lot of good originals, whether it being shorts, television shows, or other things like that, I think the one area where they really have to improve is original movies because original movies they're kind of lacking, or some of them just are not that good.
Yeah, because I think you told me about a few of them that are really bad.
Hmm. Yeah, and of course at launch the only two that we had were the Lady and the Tramp live action remake and Noel. I saw both of those. They're not terrible, but they're not really all that good either.
We're only going to be talking mostly about the ones that we've seen, the ones that are actually alright. So, starting off,
Yeah.
one of the first ones that came out that really caught my attention, and one that I was glad to watch, I think it was the first original movie I watched. It's not really a movie, it's more of a documentary. It's called One Day at Disney.
Hmm. Yeah, I really liked One Day at Disney, where it goes through various people who work at the various divisions of the Disney company, and it's really good. There was even a series of like 50 plus shorts that they made about it, and those were also really nice to watch as well.
Yeah, it's like, it's always nice to not really think about too much and just sort of watch. I don't watch documentaries that much, but when I do and it's for something I'm interested in, I'll watch it. Like, I'm interested to seeing how Disney handles all of their stuff, whether it's TV shows or movies or rides or theme parks or all that
Mm,
fun stuff. It's like these all
Yep,
these
and
people under the same name just bringing out some great stuff.
yep. Yeah, and it was really nice to watch, especially when they had people from the Disney and Pixar side, like how they had the Disney animator Eric Goldberg. It's always cool to see him, and they also had one of the Pixar guys, which was Jerome Rampt. He doesn't really work on the movies as one of the animation people. He's the guy who sculpts maquettes for the characters.
Really.
Yeah. And I remember that part was actually I remember that part was actually kind of sad to me because Jerome Rampt, he's the brother of the late Joe Rampt, who if you don't know who he is, he was one of the original guys at Pixar who was part
Hmm.
of the creative team along with John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, etc. But he died
Yeah.
in 2005. It was really sad when I saw his because he said that he looked up to his brother and he would oftentimes come visit him when he was working at Disney to see what he did.
That's really unfortunate, but yeah, but don't worry. Aside from that, One Day at Disney's actually really charming. Like, I think it's really
Mm.
cute.
Yeah, and it's also cool in a lot of the shorts where they don't just focus on like certain things of Disney and as well as Pixar. They also do stuff for the theme parks, and they even do stuff for other things too, like for some of the sports things, or for like the ABC News channel. There's even one about this lady who participates in the foreign thing of the Lion King, a Broadway show, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, all sorts of things. So if you're into Disney, I think you should give One Day at Disney a shot, whether it's the documentary or the shorts. You might get more out of the shorts because there's like, what, 50 plus of them? Plus
Yes.
tons, but yeah, I think you
Mhm.
should check them out. I think they're really good.
Mhm. Yeah, they're really good. And of course, moving from a documentary, now we can talk about what I thought was the first truly great original movie for Disney Plus, which was Togo.
And at this point, it's probably the only really, really, really good original movie on Disney Plus because yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. But I saw Togo, I think it was like a couple of weeks after it came out because I heard everybody saying it was really good and it was a massive standout for originals. And I watched it and yeah, they're right. This movie is really good.
Yep, I loved it too. And the funny thing about the movie is that the movie is actually sort of like a a more truthful retelling of the story that Balto also originally came from.
Yeah, I don't look to that story the same way now because it's all
Mhm,
one giant lie.
mhm. Yeah, because for everybody who's seen Balto, I'm sure you know about that whole story of how in the 1920s there was that dog sled thing where they basically delivered medicine to sick children in a town in Alaska. Most people know about the Balto thing, but it turns out that Balto wasn't the true hero. It was the dog Togo who was the real hero.
Balto was only seen as the hero because he did like the last few runs to get back to
Mhm.
town, and everybody thought he was the hero, but he wasn't. He just did the last part. It was Togo that did
Yeah.
most of the work.
And it's actually kind of sad when you find that out, considering that Balto got movies based off him in the '90s, and there's even a memorial to him in New York City.
Ugh, what are they gonna do about that once they find out the real story?
Hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, everything you hear about Balto is basically a lie. I'm not saying the dog didn't do some good, but clearly Togo should get more respect than him.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah,
And
the
not to mention,
movie's...
I think yeah, and
Sorry.
I think the animals for that movie were trained really well because the dog that they got who that was playing Togo, so to speak, was really good in the film, and he really played off all the actors really well, and I really thought Willem Dafoe did a good job playing off a dog.
Yeah, that was great. Like I said, I really love this movie, and if you, I think, for Disney Plus original movies go, you should check it out. I think it's definitely the first original movie you should check out, and considering it's
Mhm.
the only great one, that's kind of unfortunate.
Mhm. I mean, there's also Soul, but it kind of seems like you're not really looking at Soul as a complete Disney Plus original.
Not really. I mean, if we're talking originals, it'd probably be the best one by far, but it's not
Mm,
technically a Disney Plus original movie because it wasn't meant to be one. I suppose if
mm,
we can judge it on that merits, yeah, it's the best original movie, but when it's not that, I think Togo is
mm.
definitely the best one.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I was actually thinking of doing a list which was the top 10 best Disney Plus originals so far. It was because there isn't like enough for like one thing. I was going to put all of it together, whether it's shorts, specials, movies, and shows. And originally, Soul was going to be the highest for movies, but I'm thinking to myself, should I really classify Soul as a Disney Plus original entirely?
I suppose we'll let the audience figure that one out. Alright, so there's one other Disney Plus original movie that I suppose Cartoon OG wanted to talk about more than I do because he's a bigger fan of it than I am, but Phineas and Ferb had a new movie on Disney Plus that came out last year.
Yeah, Candace Against the Universe, which came out in late August. Funny enough, even though it would have been cool if it had come out earlier, since it takes place in the summer. But because of the COVID pandemic, the release had to be delayed, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it was the first animated movie to be on Disney Plus, not counting Soul. So
Mhm.
I know for a
And
lot
the
of fans of the franchise, this was exciting for them. Uh,
mhm.
Me personally, I was never the biggest fan of Phineas and Ferb. I liked the show enough, but I never put it on like the same level as I do for other shows like DuckTales 2017 or Amphibia or The Owl House or even old shows like Darkwing Duck or Goof Troop. It's like I never disliked it. I just prefer those shows to an extent.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, it's the exact opposite. I love Phineas and Ferb. In fact, I actually rank it higher than most other Disney shows. But I'd rather not get into that because I don't want to turn this into like a popular unpopular opinions debate or get anyone listening to this bad idea.
Yeah, let's just focus on the movie for now. So I watched it. It was a couple years after I watched the show. It's all right. It's I think it's okay, but Cartoon OG definitely likes it more than I do.
Yeah, but it was really great. It was cool to see the characters again, and I honestly think that this movie shows that it is possible to bring back something from a canceled show and actually do it well. In fact, I was honestly surprised when I saw some people reviewing it that said that they're surprised the show got canceled in the first place. I mean, well, Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Mars chose to end the show when they did, so I respect them for doing that. But I was actually kind of surprised when I found out that some people said, I don't know why the show still isn't going.
Because it doesn't want to overstay its welcome. Do you want it to be another SpongeBob?
Hmm. In fact, when the show ended back in the summer of 2015, Dan and Swampy even said there was even a quote from them where they said, without naming any names, there are some shows that have done themselves a great disservice by lasting a season or three too long, and we don't want that to happen to our show.
Even as a somewhat fan of the show, I thought the movie was just okay. Like, it did some things well. I think the animation is okay. There were definitely parts where you could tell it was kind of cheapened out, and I get it, it's because of the pandemic, but I don't know. If movies like Soul could be completed within the pandemic, I don't know if I can defend Phineas and Ferb for that.
Hmm. I mean, I thought the animation was still pretty good. I mean, it felt like it still felt like the show, but personally, yeah, and even though I did really like this, I personally thought that the last movie they did Across the Second Dimension was better.
I actually did watch that like a couple of weeks after I watched this movie. I actually really liked that one, and I was surprised because considering my stance on the show, but it's actually really fucking good.
It's kind of funny how like we haven't really talked too much about the plot or anything about the movie. I think we just keep talking about stuff related to the show and everything. But
Yeah, oh
yeah,
well, but yeah,
yeah,
don't need to know much,
but
but yeah.
but personally, I definitely recommend the film. I actually thought it was really I actually thought it was well done, and I really thought that it really brought out the relationship between Candace and her brothers really well. And personally, I know we said we don't like to talk about that show anymore, but I think that show should take notes from Phineas and Ferb on how to handle sibling relationships better, especially with the conflict part.
Yes, that show that has just gotten worse and worse over time, and even saying its name makes me want to die, but oh well, when it comes to this movie, if you're a newcomer, maybe check it out, but personally, I would just go watch the show, or I would just go watch Across the Second Dimension because I think those are much better.
In fact, I would recommend watching the show first because just so you don't get lost on a lot of things because there is a lot of references to the show.
Yeah, but anyway, the movie, it's alright. It's alright.
I like it quite a
I
bit.
still think Togo's better, but oh well.
Yeah, most definitely. Even though I did really like this, I still have to agree Togo is the best original movie by far for Disney Plus. But like I said though, before we get onto the shows, like I said, movies I think is the one aspect of original content that Disney Plus really has to work on because it seems like we do get some great ones, but most of the time it seems like we get ones that are either okay, ones that are kind of just really mediocre and not really worth it, and ones that just suck.
Yeah, so I think they need to pick up the slack a bit and make some really good original movies because for me,
Mhm.
outside of Togo, most of them, and I guess Soul, most of them were just either okay or just bad, and I don't want to check them out. That's it for movies. It's time to move on to the real meat of the bones when it comes to Disney Plus originals, and that's the shows because there's a lot
Yep.
of shows on Disney Plus, and I think a lot of them are really damn good.
Yep. Yeah, like we said, when it started off, like the biggest of course the biggest one is The Mandalorian. In fact, would you say that The Mandalorian is probably the flagship show for Disney Plus?
Definitely. I think that's the show that people think of when they think of Disney Plus originals. I can't think
Mhm.
of another Disney Plus show that's on this magnum scale as The Mandalorian.
Mhm. Yeah, and not to mention, it's such a big show that it actually became one of the highest watched streaming. In fact, it became the highest watched streaming show. It even beat Netflix's Stranger Things.
Wow, that's insane, considering it only has 2 seasons so far, but that's
Yeah,
just
and it beating Stranger Things happened with only its first season.
wow, that's crazy. So, I suppose if we're going to talk a bit about The Mandalorian for a second, I think there's no surprise when I say it's probably the best original show on Disney Plus. Like,
Yeah,
there's not much
I mean,
competition.
yeah, and yeah, when it comes to the originals in general, The Mandalorian is pretty much high up there. And I remember when I first watched the show, I just remember being blown away by all the by how well handled it was. And yeah, but of course, we're mostly going to talk about season two because we talked about the show in the first one, and season two came out last fall. And hmm,
Season 2 made me fucking cry, man. It was so good.
yep, and let's also not forget that season two in some ways almost felt like it had a bit of a bigger scale in some respects, especially with some of the episode lengths. I mean the season premiere actually started off with the longest episode it had so far.
Yeah, kind of funny that the last episode wasn't the longest, but I suppose when people have been waiting a year for the Mandalorian to come back, they have to kick it off with a bang. So let's give him a really, really, really long episode. Hopefully that'll satisfy their tastes. But yeah,
Yeah, and
season two,
yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, and I still remember the season premiere as one thing I really liked about the season premiere was just the big scale it had, especially with how and like that one dude he teams up with from Tatooine and the Tusken Raiders. They basically all team up to stop this creature called the Krayt Dragon. I'm assuming that creature has been established before in Star Wars lore, like in books and stuff. But I was surprised when I saw that there's a creature on Tatooine that's even more scary than the Sarlacc.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, I was fucking like, oh my god, that thing is gonna kill everybody. It was absolutely nuts. And like, how they were gonna kill it itself was great.
And I don't know if you remember this line, but they actually mentioned at one point that it's actually a creature that actually eats Sarlaccs, and the Sarlacc was already shown to be a pretty massive creature in Return of the Jedi.
Right, I forgot about that. That's crazy.
hmm
Technology can make some creatures look like peasants compared to these new guys.
Yeah, and another thing I also really liked about that, I remember I was really happy that they established this whole thing where Mando was able to speak with the Tusken Raiders or Sand People, as they're sometimes called, and they were able to work with the one town to get rid of the Krayt Dragon. And I really like that because compared to what we saw like in some of the films, especially in Attack of the Clones, and I really liked how it showed that Tusken Raiders can be reasoned with, and they're not just mindless brutes.
Yeah, yeah, it still amazes me how well this show is handled, especially considering the Star Wars brand itself hasn't been handled all that best from Disney. It's mainly the people in charge, but I think The
Hmm.
Mandalorian is an exception.
It's basically, yeah. For the most part, the Mandalorian so far has been the best Star Wars thing that was made under Disney. That's been really good, and I still like the Force Awakens, but I know that there have been a lot of conflicting opinions on the new films. So
Yeah, don't watch Rise of Skywalker. It's actually really bad.
yeah, in
But
fact, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I'm a bit torn on the Last Jedi, but yeah, but I think Rise of Skywalker is not a good film. In fact, I think it's pretty much on the same level as the prequels. It sucks.
yeah, don't watch it. But go watch Mandalorian instead. I guarantee you, it's worth
Mhm.
it. Like even if you just want to get Disney Plus for that, I don't
Mhm.
know. There's still other stuff you can watch, but I think The Mandalorian, yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that there was a lot of really cool stuff in season two, including the return of a certain character.
Yes, the return of a certain character from a certain show that I still haven't finished, but it was still pretty cool
Mhm.
to see that character.
Yeah, as well as another character who. It's funny how I mentioned the Sarlacc earlier because this character is connected to the Sarlacc, and I still remember thinking to myself, how exactly did he survive?
Oh yes, that character comes back, and that was freaking awesome, especially since he does team up with Mando towards the end of
Mhm.
season two.
Mhm. Yep, and yeah, and of course that's also enough. Yeah, though it's kind of funny how we're not saying their names because it was all over social media which characters came back, and but it seems like we're not just saying their names just to be a bit more secretive. And let's also not forget that there were some other reveals in the season finale, and those were also really cool to see.
Yes, I'm pretty sure people can figure out exactly who we're talking about. The only thing I have left to say about season two, though, is what's going to happen now after the ending? Because season two ended on sort of like a note that makes you think, is it going to keep going? Is it going to stop here?
Mhm. Yeah, and you said that season two made you cry. Like I still remember when I saw the ending of the final episode of season two, when I was just, basically after getting the nerdgasm from seeing you know who, we basically follow that up with this really sad moment where. Where I'd rather not say what happens, but I just remember like, wow, I watched the episode twice, and both times I was basically just really feeling it as soon as with how it ends.
Yeah, if you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. But like, it's this kind of stuff that makes me say there would be really, really hard for The Mandalorian to get topped in terms of Disney Plus original shows. So, if you
Mhm.
haven't seen it, then
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing here? Go check it out.
Yep. It's basically what Stranger Things is for Netflix.
Yeah, this is Disney Plus's Stranger Things, basically.
Mhm.
All right, let's talk about this next show. I have a lot of things to say about it, so we might spend a bit of time here. But being a fan of the franchise, you know we gotta talk about it. Let's talk about Muppets Now.
Yep. I
Okay.
was really excited for this, and I remember when it first came out there was all these conflicting reports because I remember early on it said that there was going to be a Muppet show for the service, but then it got canceled, and then there was like this thing that said that it was going to be a show where the Muppets did it with Josh Gad, I believe, and then later I was just like, oh, it got canceled. Then later they said that they were going to do an original Muppet project, but it was going to be like a short form series with episodes that were 10 minutes long. But then that was proven to be untrue, and it was a regular form show with 23-minute episodes. So yeah,
I'll say
the
right
entire
off the
yeah,
bat.
it's kind of
Sorry, go on.
it's just kind of weird how like the whole thing of the original Muppet series for Disney Plus basically had so much conflicting reports on it.
Yeah, and in some areas I don't exactly blame them, but alright, I'll say it right now. Do I think Muppets Now is good? Well, it depends on where you're looking at it from. If you're trying to compare it to the other Muppet shows, I think it does kind of fall flat, but on its own, it's alright, I guess. It's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I was honestly satisfied because I just wanted to get new Muppet content because I love the Muppets, and of course, my current motto: the world needs more Muppets.
I think at the time I was just excited to see another new Muppet show, especially since it's been like 5 years since we had one, and it's been
Mm.
ages since the Muppets have been in anything. So I was
Yep.
excited to see the show, but rewatching it nowadays, I don't like it as much as I used to. I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just I think it does have a bit of missed potential.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really hope that they do more. I mean, Bill Beretta has confirmed that there is going to be more original Muppet content for Disney Plus, but we don't know if they're going to continue the show or just do something completely different. But I would like to see more of this, um, and while we're at it, could we talk if they do a season two of Muppets now? Like, what are some problems that you think they need to fix for it?
Well, the first problem I think they need to fix on is the length of some of these sketches that they do for the show, because the Muppets Now is pretty much improvised. They don't use a script, they just sort of base it off a concept and they just work around it. And I think, you see, part of the charm of the original show was that not only did they have the sketches, but they were also pretty short. So if there was ever like a segment that you got sick of, you could at least like just sit through it for like a minute and then it moves on to something else. But with Muppets Now, each episode has about 4 sketches and they usually range about 3 to 5 minutes. And so that means if there's one you're sick of, then you have to slog through it for that length. And I think if they
Mhm.
do a season 2, they should make them shorter and add more segments for other characters because there are characters that do miss out on getting their own little sketches here.
Yeah, and of course, one disappointment for me is that Gonzo was only in 3 episodes, and he's my favorite Muppet, and that was kind of disappointing. And in every episode, he's not even in it for that much, except for the first one.
Oh well,
Hmm.
but yeah, Muppets Now, like when it comes to the sketches, I think some of them are a bit too long. Like I think they should have been a bit shorter, especially since there are definitely better sketches than others. One of my favorite ones was Muppet Masters with Walter, and sort of like how it dives into the philosophy of the Muppet characters. But that's only
Mhm.
in 2 episodes out of the 6 that we get.
Mhm. I honestly did not get that because, for one thing, it was cool to have that because I felt like Walter was deserving to basically be used in a show after he was absent in the 2015 show, and it was really good. And that was actually one of the highlights of the first episode. I remember a lot of people said they didn't really like the first episode, but that was one of the biggest highlights, which was the Muppet Master segment. And they only use it twice in the 6 episodes. And another one that I thought was really good was Pepe's Game Show, but they only used that one 3 times.
Yeah, I suppose 3 is better than 2, but I liked that one, but they didn't use it that much. It's funny because I thought that was the one part where the improvisation was actually benefiting the Muppets because it just works.
Mhm. Yep. And of course, I think everybody has said this, but the segment that you felt that gets kind of bad after a while is Okie Dokie Cookin', right?
Yeah, I think out of the segments, that's the one where I'm like, I just want to get through this one already. And that sucks, because I usually love seeing the Swedish Chef in these segments. These segments, though, they kind of drag on after a bit, because they're all the same concept. There's a celebrity that's cooking, and Swedish Chef is always messing something up. Like, usually when he was in the original show, it was short, and there was always a gag around that, but because it's improvised, they don't really do much with it.
Mhm. Also, yeah. Also, after rewatching a lot of the Muppet Show, I don't know if this is just I don't know if this is how I'm seeing this, but do you think that that Swedish Chef seems to be more incompetent here than he used to be in terms of knowing how to cook?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
because he seems a lot more he seems a lot more incompetent now. Because in the Muppet Show, even though he was kind of like this weird cook, it kind of seemed like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they made him so incompetent because I guess they wanted it to be funny or something.
Another problem that I also have is that that mediator character they have, Beverly Plume, she is boring. She has no charisma whatsoever. It gets pretty old, and this is coming from someone who likes Swedish Chef. Lifestyle with Miss Piggy is in every single episode. I personally thought that that was going to be their major thing. I mean, that's one of those segments where I like it, but it can be hit or miss at times. Some parts of it are good, some parts, eh.
Yeah, but at least it's like the only segment that I think feels the shortest out of them all. Like it's
Mhm,
usually about 2 to 3 minutes, so
mhm. And going back to the whole non-union thing, I heard that all the Miss Piggy lifestyle with Miss Piggy stuff was done in only 2 days. Like I heard that all the stuff with Tay Diggs was done one day, and a lot of the other stuff was done the other day.
wow, that's crazy. They do all that in just a couple of days.
Mhm. Yeah, the Tay Diggs stuff is actually one of the better parts of it, and so is the video chat part. The video chat part is always cool to watch, especially when you wonder which Muppet characters they'll put in the video chat.
Yeah, that's another thing. Celebrity guests on the show are kind of hit and miss. I mean, like you said, the guy they had in the lifestyle with Miss Piggy segments was cool, and I liked seeing Linda Cardellina during the video chats, but most of the other ones. Okay, everybody universally agrees that episode 4 is the worst, and I think one of the reasons was the Mupp Close segment at the beginning, because the
Mhm,
guest they got for that, God, it was boring.
mhm. Yeah, and Muppet Spot even pointed out that it looks like she cannot work with puppets because when Piggy was doing the interview with her, it kind of seemed like she wasn't even facing the puppet properly. Like she
It's
could
like
not work with puppets at all.
it's like that's an essential part when you're working with the Muppets. You have to look at them like they're real people. But like she just looked at them as puppets, I guess. It's like
Mhm,
they're trying to act like real people. Focus on it more.
mhm. Yeah, man. And going back to the whole celebrity thing, I personally thought that the best Okie dokie cooking segment was the one that had Danny Trejo in it.
Okay, that one was good. I actually really liked that one. I think out of all of them, that's the best one.
Hmm. Yeah, and going back to them up close and personal, those are good except for that one. The one with RuPaul was good, and the one with Seth Rogen in the final episode was also good.
It's just that one in between that sucked.
Another thing I also don't get though is that another problem with episode 4 is that there is way too much Piggy in episode. All I could think to myself is, couldn't they have had someone else do the up close and personal interview like Gonzo or someone who hasn't been used that much?
Yeah, especially considering they don't get used that much either. It seems like Miss Piggy takes up most of the attention in Muppets now.
Hmm.
And it's funny, not even Kermit appears that much. Like, he's in a couple of parts in episode 1, but he's not really in the show that much.
Yeah, most of the time he only seems to appear every so often, or he also appears before all the Muppet Labs field test segments where he and this new character Joe the Legal Weasel basically tell the audience not to copy this at home.
Yeah, and also, speaking of Kermit, I may as well get into this. It doesn't have anything to do with the show, it's more of a personal thing. I don't think Matt Vogel does a very good Kermit, honestly. Like,
This is the first major Muppet project since Steve Whitmire was let go by Disney, and Matt Vogel's a great performer, but he is not Kermit. He really isn't.
no, like, funny, he sounds okay when he's singing, but when he's talking, he does not sound good at all. He sounds. Every time I listen to his voice, I'm always going back to that one part in Muppets Most Wanted where Constantine, who is also played by Matt Vogel, is trying to do Kermit's voice like he's watching him on TV, and he's trying to do do his lines, like, it reminds me a lot of that. Like, it doesn't sound like Kermit, it just sounds like Constantine's doing a better Kermit impression.
Hmm. Yeah, it's real. Yeah, he's just not in. But like I said, I really don't want to talk badly about Matt Vogel because he is a good performer and he does a lot of other great work with the Muppets, but he is not Kermit.
Yeah, like, I'm not hating on Matt Vogel. I'm sure he's a great guy, and he is a great puppeteer. Like, I've seen him as Big Bird a couple times, and he does a good job. But if you're
Mhm.
gonna get someone to replace Kermit, I think it should have been Peter Linz, because he does Ernie, and he sounds okay as Ernie, so why didn't he do Kermit as well?
Yeah, and besides him, the only other one who I think probably could have done an okay job is Bill Beretta. But I heard that Bill actually did not audition for Kermit out of respect for Steve. I've actually heard that the two puppeteers who I've heard that have a lot of respect for Steve and didn't want to audition for his characters were Bill and Dave.
That doesn't have anything to do with the show. I'd say as a whole, Muppets Now it's okay. Like, if you're a Muppets
Yeah.
fan, you might like it, but if not, you're not really missing out on much, especially since we have the original show on Disney Plus now. So, if you
Mhm.
want to watch a Muppet show, just go watch that one.
Though, would you take Muppets Now over the 2015 show or no?
That's hard to say because there was a lot of things I liked about the 2015 show. I think it was
And
funnier. I think the characters were more in line. I think because it was scripted, it had more like ideas with itself. But it
and also
also,
and also it still had Steve.
yeah, exactly. It still had Steve Whitmire. But on the other hand, it could also get a little bit mean-spirited at times. But
Yeah.
I suppose if
Mhm.
that's only a couple of instances, I guess I would prefer the 2015 show over Muppets Now personally,
Yeah.
even though
I,
there
I'm
are some things about it that I think do throw me off.
I remember you said that there were some instances you weren't too fond of. I actually heard that the puppeteers even had problems. It wasn't just Steve. I heard that Eric Jacobson and some of the others had problems with that show as well. In fact, you're not going to believe this. I heard that Frank Oz couldn't even watch the show because he hated what they did with Fozzie.
Ugh, yeah, it's like, yeah, like a lot of people say that about the show. I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
that far. I think the show is decent. I think it's a bit underrated, especially since after a bit, the show does get a lot more lighthearted. Like around
Yeah.
episode 9, it starts getting a lot more pleasant to watch. Not saying it's
Yeah.
not pleasant, it's still funny, it's just a bit more pleasant on that respect.
Yeah. Oh, before we stop talking about Muppets Now, well, we forgot to mention, what do you think of the Muppet Labs field test segments in Muppets Now?
I think as a whole, that's probably one of my favorite segments on the show. Like, it takes up 5 of the episodes, but I really, really liked those ones. I just like
Yeah.
seeing it.
Yeah, especially because since there's no Gonzo, I guess doing Bunsen is the main thing that Dave Goles got to do on the show because Gonzo's not in it that much, and no Electric Mayhem meant no Zoot.
Yeah, Bunsen was pretty much the only character he got to play most of in Muppets Now, which
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
I love Bunsen and Beaker, but
Yeah.
yeah, no
Oh,
Gonzo is kind of
and going back to
disappointing.
Beaker, I know Steve was performing Beaker for the longest time. He's currently David Rudman. I can say that David Rudman does a pretty good Beaker.
Yeah, he's at least a decent replacement for Steve.
Hmm. Who was already a decent replacement for Richard Hunt when he died.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
anyway, yeah, Muppets Now. If you want to watch it, I'm not gonna stop you, but I think there are some better shows on there that you should check
Yeah.
out.
And of course, going from the Muppets, we now go to the Jim Henson Company with Earth to Ned, which was a new show from Jim Henson. Well, the Jim Henson Company, I mean.
Yeah, they didn't do Muppets Now. That's from a different studio. The Jim Henson Company have finally come back to make another new show. I think since Bear in the Big Blue House in '97. So it's been
Mm.
that long since they did their own show, and they did it for Disney, who doesn't even own the Jim Henson Company. So
They just partner with them from time to time.
yeah, they just partner with them. But Earth to Ned, I like it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I think for a show that's just trying to be like a spoof of those interview shows, it's actually really damn good.
Yeah, it's really cool, and personally, like this is actually something that for a while was kind of hard for me to admit, but Earth to Ned is better than Muppets Now.
I think I might have to agree with you. I'd say while Earth to Ned has less like variety, it's just a lot funnier, a lot more charming, and the puppeteering is amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, especially with the alien puppets, especially with Ned himself. I think I heard that he's actually performed by at least four people, and for the longest time I didn't know that. I know the primary performer and his voice is done by the great Paul Rugg. For anybody who doesn't know, Paul Rugg was already a pretty successful cartoon writer and voice actor since the '90s because he worked on a lot of the '90s Warner Brothers shows like Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and he was the voice of Freakazoid. It's hard to believe that somebody who already was successful in animation found another successful career doing puppeteering and working for the Jim Henson Company, no less.
Yes, it was the perfect place for him to go after all of that. But yeah, there's not too much to say about Earth to Ned because it's mainly a interview show. Of course, there are one-off segments every once in a while. It does kind of still have that Muppet Show vibe to it, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
like in between the two interview parts where Ned will send Cornelius to do something, and Cornelius is also a pretty cool character as well. Though it's kind of sad how, with the exception of Paul Rugg and Kevin Clash, I don't really know any of the other puppeteers on the show. Muppet told me that they're basically various puppeteers that the Jim Henson Company has around, but basically none of the Muppet guys or no other well-known Henson puppeteers work on this show. Like I said, besides Kevin Clash. And not to mention, a lot of the times the celebrities they get to talk on the show are also cool. Like that one Star Wars episode that they had was really cool, where they had Billy D. Williams and they even had BB-8 appear on the show. That was cool.
Yeah, like the guest stars also are just much better than most of the ones on Muppets now. Like I said, there's just so much Earth to Ned does that I think makes it better than Muppets now. Of course, again, not shitting on that other show. I just think this one's better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not to mention a lot of the people that they get too, like how they got Kristen Shaw in episode two, and also like in the recent set of episodes they got a lot of cool ones like they got Jack McBrayer in one episode, they got Penn and Teller in another episode. It was really cool to see.
Wow, that's great. That was
They also got Alan Tudyk in one episode, which is kind of cool
huh.
since Alan Tudyk's done a lot of voice work for Disney in the last decade.
Yeah, he's basically Disney's John Ratzenberger at this point.
Or their new Jim Cummings, if you will.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, Earth to Ned's a more simpler show, but again, I kind of view it in the same length as the Muppet Show. Of course, I don't think it's as good, but it has its own vibes to it. It makes it feel pretty similar, and it's just really nice to see. Do you need to
Yeah.
watch it? I don't know. Depends on if you're a massive Puppeteer fan, but even if you're not, I still think you should check it out.
Yeah, and as someone who's a huge Muppet fan and who loves Jim Henson content, it was great to see, and it was really good for the Jim Henson Company to make a new show in such a long time.
Yeah, and honestly, over time, this show just got better for me. I remember when I first watched it, I'm like, it's okay. But then after time I watched it again, I'm like, no, this is actually much better than I thought. And to the point where, yes, I do think it's better than Muppets now. But yeah, I think you should give Earth to Ned a watch. Especially if you've seen Muppets now. Alright, so we really only have one last show to talk about. We won't spend too much time on it because I actually don't want to get spoiled on it, but I suppose we can still talk about how good of a setup it is. It's WandaVision.
Which was the very first Disney Plus original from Marvel, which wasn't meant to be the first Marvel original, but COVID ruined that. Ugh, man,
Yeah.
COVID has been such a plague on this world.
Ah well, with the vaccinations coming out, hopefully it will be get rid of soon.
Yeah, but I don't expect it to be gone anytime soon.
Nah, probably not anytime soon. Maybe in a couple months from now, but I doubt it will
Hmm,
be right now. But anyway, going back
yeah.
on topic, WandaVision. I've only seen 3 episodes because I have still not seen the rest of the MCU. Currently, the latest one I watched was Doctor Strange in the third wave, so I still have a long way to go before I know anything about WandaVision. Like the
Hmm,
characters Wanda and Vision, I meant to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, yeah. At least you already knew who Wanda and Vision were because they were both introduced in Avengers: Age of Ultron, and they also played big
Yeah.
parts in Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah, I do know the characters, so I was aware of their presence in the show.
Hmm. Yeah, right off the bat, one awesome thing I can definitely say about WandaVision is even though it's only a mini series, it's not a full-on show. It's one of the most unique things they've done for the MCU because it's not a straight up superhero action series. actually do like this classic sitcom feel to it, and it just makes it feel like a very unique thing for the MCU.
Yeah, it's just like it's this kind of show you can watch and you can still love it, even though it doesn't feel like a superhero show. But that's like outside the lore of it, and it's mesmerizing. It makes you think, but it is so well done.
Yeah. In fact, the first few episodes will make you wonder what exactly is going on. I'm not going to spoil anything. I've watched all of it, but I don't want to spoil anything for you or for anybody else. But
Yeah.
the first episodes will have you guessing a lot. In fact, when saw the first two episodes, I was guessing so much, like I'm wondering, like, what is going on here? And I actually had a few different ideas of what was happening, but of course, most of them weren't exactly true. So
Yeah, but I can't say too much, but from what you say and what other people say, WandaVision is definitely a highlight. I think this show will eventually become one of the best original shows on Disney Plus next to The Mandalorian.
yeah, even though it's only a mini series.
Yeah, but oh well, it
Yeah,
is still
yeah,
good. Actually, are they making
yeah.
more episodes or is that all we're getting?
I think that's all we're getting because it's a mini series. It's not a full on show with multiple seasons.
Ah,
It's
alright,
kind of
well,
funny because I know most miniseries are basically something that's only about 5 hours long, but I think putting all this together, it would be like almost 10 hours long.
yeah, it'd be like, yeah, imagine if it was a movie, it would be a godsend forever.
Because I know one of the things with a miniseries that it's basically something that sometimes gets spread apart into like 4 or 5 episodes, and sometimes can be edited together as to like a 3 hour movie. That's usually that's usually what a miniseries is.
Yeah,
But this is longer. But this is a bit more. But it was cool to finally get something new from Marvel because I was craving some new Marvel content, and we really needed that because last year there was no new MCU film.
yes, and I think they have another Marvel show coming out this month.
Uh, in fact, this week actually, at the time we're recording this, there is another show that's going to come out in 2 days. But by the time we post it, it'll probably already be out.
Yeah, that's Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, like I said, at the time we're recording this, it's only 2 days from release, but by the time this video gets posted, it'll already be out most likely.
Yeah, probably it does take me a while to edit these videos and work on other things. But yes, that show's coming out, and we still got a lot of other Marvel shows coming out, including a Loki show, a Hawkeye show, and What If. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most, What If.
Yeah, yeah. What if? Yeah, because it's gonna probably because it's gonna be an animated show. But what if actually doesn't have a confirmed release date yet? Even though Falcon and the Winter Soldier is coming out, and both Loki and Hawkeye are confirmed. Oh, there's another one confirmed for this year called Ms. Marvel, which is another Marvel show.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear much about that one actually.
Yeah. Though funny enough, just like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be a mini series as well, where it's only going to be like a 6 part mini series. But What If and Loki are going to be full on TV shows. They're not going to be mini series.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to those ones the most then, because I already
Yeah,
love watching animated shows. I loved Loki from the Thor movies.
but What If is going to be an animated series, and one of the things I love about What If is that it's basically going to do this concept that's been in comic books, which is basically the Elseworld concept, where basically what happens is that there was actually a series of Marvel comics called What If, where basically the premise is what if, as in what if this happened, and it would give you like a sort of like an Elseworld scenario. Like for example, what if Uncle Ben never got killed, or what if someone else became Captain America, that sort of thing.
Ah, yes, I'm a sucker for those kind of stories where it gives you a different perspective on an
Yeah,
outcome. So,
yeah, and the funny thing is that that's been a big thing in comics. DC does that too I think theirs is called Elseworld or something like that.
that's where the name came from. Yeah, the
Mm,
what if concept. I can't wait to see that from Marvel, and
mhm.
I want it to
Yeah,
get a release date because I did see the trailer for it.
and I was really excited for it. I'm not exactly sure what some of the scenarios are. I know that one of the scenarios is going to be where Steve Rogers didn't become America. It was instead crap. I keep forgetting her name. But
I know what you mean.
but I know that's going to be one of the concepts, and it looks really cool, especially because This is something that we talked about beforehand, but it seems like so far with Disney Plus, all of their original content that's been animated has either been shorts and maybe one or two movies. They haven't had a full TV show yet for originals.
Yeah, and I think What If? No, What If will be one of them, and I
Mhm.
really want to see some more animated. And I'm not counting the Clone Wars because that's a continuation and not an entirely different show, so I'm not going to
Yeah,
count that.
yeah. In fact, I told you that when I came to that realization that I didn't count the new season of Clone Wars because that was a continuation where originally it aired on Cartoon Network and then season 6 was on Netflix, so it actually changed three times.
Ouch. But yeah, that is pretty much everything that has come to Disney Plus since it launched back in November of 2019. So, after all the ups and downs it's gone through, I think I can still definitively say Disney Plus is one of the most get streaming services of all time. If you don't have it, you should at least give it a shot because it's got so much good stuff on there.
hmm Yeah, and even though like I probably still have to say Netflix is the best streaming service out there, Disney Plus is the one I've been using the most ever since I got it because I just love it. It has so much stuff, and in a lot of ways, Disney Plus has basically been the perfect streaming service for me in a way because almost everything I love is on there. You know, Disney and Pixar, like the various like movies and television shows like the Disney Afternoon and Phineas and Ferb and Muppets, Dinosaurs, The Simpsons.
Yeah, there's
So,
just been
so almost everything I love is on there. Almost. That is.
almost everything, and for me, well, it's even bigger thanks to the Star brand, although it's still a pity that Futurama's not on your Disney Plus, because I think it could fit.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Like, I personally felt that, like, maybe I'm not sure about Futurama because I love that show, but I kind of feel that that probably wouldn't fit. I mean, I still feel that even with The Simpsons, it's kind of pushing it, but
Yeah, there's just so much on Disney Plus. Not to mention the stuff from Marvel, which you should check out, and the few Star Wars movies that are really, really good, especially The Mandalorian. That's a show, I know, but whatever. There's just
hmm,
so much on Disney Plus for anybody to sink your teeth into, whether it's for families, pop culture junkies, or maybe even general viewers. There's something there that you can enjoy.
hmm.
So with that said, I definitely recommend it. I love Disney Plus. I still think it's one of the best streaming services. I don't like it as much as Netflix, but I still think it's pretty fucking amazing.
Me too. I love the service, and I don't see myself ever getting rid of it.
Yeah, so if you're a Disney fan, I think it's safe to say you probably do have Disney Plus. It's absolutely worth it. Anyway,
Hmm.
that's gonna do for this video on the Podcast Pals channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and Cartoonergy, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion.
Yep, yep. It's always great to do these with you, and I wish we could do them more often.
We'll just have to make some progress on those podcast shows that we have coming out, so stay tuned for those, and stay tuned for more content from our own separate channels, even though you don't really have a YouTube channel.
I do, but I just don't make content. I wish I did, but I don't really know much about editing or filmmaking, so that's why I've
Mm,
never made videos.
right, yeah, but anyway, that's gonna do from today, so until then, I'm Yoshi Player,
I'm the Cartoon OG, Cowabunga dudes.
and we'll see you all later.